let's say we learned even how to deal with moments. What ends up happening is we are in a way caught with instant gratification. Okay, it will give me a sudden rush. Yeah, it will be fun. But life doesn't happen in a reel. Life happens in a long format, right? So it's the same thing as you can check out 10 different reels, but you watch a good movie, it's a very different experience. So you can do 10, let's say, comebacks in 10 different situations. But if your life is still not sorted, it's not going to be fulfilling for you. Those moments are going to be very, very fleeting. They will just go as they came. But if you learn to work with, let's say, the long format, it's going to be a game changer. So what do? We imagine life to be a long comic series. And how do we do that? Something like a storyboard journal, where we start to put things out very thoughtlessly, put things as they are. If we can journal our very raw thoughts, we can revisit them. Because what ends up happening is, a lot of times the mental chaos is so much that we are never able to look back and really reflect. So how we can reflect is when we have like something as a copy which we can go through. Hello, all. So, what we are going to talk about today is undoing the spotlight effect. I think the topic itself is something that we all face in our day to day lives. And let's first of all begin with, what do we understand with the spotlight effect? So, I think all of us have experienced at some point or the other where we assume that people are really watching a lot of us. People are really almost like observing all of our micro gestures, all of our micro expressions, all of our, even all the words that we're saying very, very carefully. While in reality, they might not be. It's our own assumption that makes us believe that we are being watched or we are being really carefully observed. So, what it leads to is sort of an unrealistic kind of a scenario where we become hyper conscious, we become very, very self aware, which after a point becomes very detrimental to our day to day lives because we don't want to be so hyper conscious all the time, also. So, let's actually start understanding this effect more through certain examples. And I think we are going to understand this whole phenomenon through the perspective of one character whom you can see in this poster. So this character is called Lefty. This is basically a version of me, but this character Lefty faces a lot of the spotlight effect, and we'll see how this person deals with the spotlight effect in his day-to-day lives. Okay? Yeah. So primarily where we all are stuck is that we assume everyone is watching, and it's almost like a very zoomed in and a very, very almost like an unrealistic kind of an image that we have. So yeah, we always assume that people are watching us more than they actually are. Let me explain this through the help of a couple of examples here. Let's assume this. Hold on. Yeah. What if the freedom of feeling free was more prevalent in our lives and we were not actually taking ourselves so seriously? It's almost like we would fly. That's the kind of a feeling we would get, right? So now let me explain you this effect further through certain examples. Let's pick this for an instance. So this is like a very casual house party going on where everyone is having fun. All people are, busy in their own whatever entertainment they assume they wanted to participate in. And it doesn't come across as any situation which requires like a high alert sort of mindset, right? But now let me show you the contrast of what this character. I'll go through it again. See the situation, and now look at this situation. What's happening inside this person's head? So this person is going through thoughts such as, "Oh damn, I'm sure those people have been dancing just to avoid interacting with me." In the back, you could see some people dancing. Everyone must be judging my room based on how unorganized it is. So I hope you guys understood that this is like a house party sort of situation. And the room is obviously very unorganized. But is it something that people would be noticing? I don't know. Everyone's busy having fun. Kamini feels like talking to that dummy is more interesting than talking to me. So it's again like a hypothetical situation where this dummy that you can see. So you can see this girl is talking to this dummy, whereas, the girl is not actually thinking so much. But now our main character is actually in a bit of a trouble through that also. And then is this group right behind me? They're all laughing. Are they laughing at me since I've been drinking a bit too much, maybe? Again, it's again one of those situations where you're just thinking too much. Now, let me give you another situation. But this was like a cozy house setup. Now, let's come to like a public setup. So, this is like a setup where you're in a metro. So how does it play out? Let's see. You can see everyone is busy in their own, holding their own, whatever you call it. They're basically just traveling in the metro. And now you see what this person is going through in his mind. I think that tall man behind my back is angry at me because I bumped into him as I entered. That girl is standing away because my armpits are probably stinking too bad. Or maybe that man in the funny tank top has definitive plans of kidnapping me because he's been following me for a while now. And the girl with the short hair must be feeling insecure looking at my luscious locks. So the question we need to ask ourselves here is, yeah, is it really all of this that, are people really thinking so much? I really don't think so. But that's what the spotlight effect does to you. It makes you believe things which are sometimes true, which are sometimes very, very exaggerated, and which are sometimes totally unrealistic. So, now how do we deal with this? First of all, what we're going to understand is, okay, why an individual perspective is important in the first place. We are not saying that your own perspective and your own thoughts regarding your environment, regarding the people around you, are insignificant. We are saying they're very, very important. And what ends up happening is that we, all of us, you can see in this scenario, it's like a work setup where everyone is doing their own thing. People are, one person is sketching something, others are, kind of understanding what this person is trying to say. But how, even though the larger experience bubble is the same, each individual is going to have a very different experience because you have your own state of mind in picture. Even while we are conducting this session, all of you might be coming from a very different mindset. Some of you might be, might have had like a bad morning for whatsoever reason. Maybe you had like a fight with your sibling, maybe you had like a fight with your husband, wife, whatever. Or maybe you had like the best morning ever. Maybe you had the, you maybe you had like a great situation day before yesterday because of which you're still feeling good. So your perspective is very, very different compared to another person beside you who is also experiencing the same thing. And if we compare it with the complete opposite, for me, the experience is completely different. For me, it is I am delivering presentation and you all are observing me. So I am most, honestly, I am most likely to fall into the spotlight effect right now. But let's see what happens. So I feel an important tool in really undoing the spotlight effect is shifting perspective. So we will always be dealing with one or the other things through situations. So let's say we had like a situation here. So this Lefty, this character that we are, dealing with today, has basically had like a chill day, very relaxed. He has been walking around in the city and having a good time. And what he's thinking is, oh, literally no friends remaining to be called back. So this is a character to just give you a little bit of a context. He forgets to call back people. So what ends up happening is he then goes on a spree where he would start calling all of his friends one by one. And now he's finished all the target. So now he's just relaxing by himself. But what ends up happening is, in this situation, he ends up encountering one of her friends, Kamini again. Guess what? He has forgotten to call her back. Now he's completely anxious. Now, see, this is a very, very basic situation. It can end up happening to anyone. But this character, our Lefty, is feeling so anxious about the situation since he sees Kamini walking in the same lane, he is now completely stressed and he's like, now she's going to kill me. So now you can see in his thought bubbles how he's imagining the situation to be. So he's probably thinking that this friend of his is going to strangle him or something. So now
Yep.
how the situation develops is he is trying to utter something, maybe, actually, and he's stuttering. But we will see how this situation can actually change. The situation could have been dealt with better, but how? We'll see. So another very, very important tool that we need to keep in mind in dealing with social situations is that we need to create a safe distance between you and the situation sometimes. Because a lot of times we do not give ourselves enough mind space to be able to deal with the situation that we are currently in. So how do we detach ourselves? It's almost like hypothetically you have to take yourself out of the situation mentally. Of course, you cannot do it physically, you can do it mentally. So, mentally, you take you out and put like a random character, like an anonymous character X into the situation. So, what ends up happening is that when you create that distance between you and the situation, you actually create better understanding, like an objective understanding of the situation, because now you're not a part of it. You can look at it as a from a bird's eye view and be like, okay, so this X character is facing this situation, and now see how the lefty is looking at the situation like that. Maybe it wasn't such a big deal after all. Even rather seems like a funny situation, right? So sometimes a lot of things that we in close up feel like it's tragedy is actually from a distance little bit of a comedy. Now the important part comes up to be that how do we understand this character X? We have superimposed in our situation this character X, but how do we understand this character X? So there are two, three very simple steps to kind of go about having this going about this process. So the first step is that you need to analyze your own behavior. See, this character X is going to come out of your behavior only. You'll see how. So you need to understand your basic traits, your quirks, your strengths, your flaws, and you need to even be able to laugh at your flaws because that's how it's going to take away the spotlight from you. Then the next step is how do you customize a version of yourself who would be able to handle the situation better? So you see, now we are going full fiction. We are grounding our argument in reality. We are saying that yes, we have a situation, we have our own behavior, but is there a version of me who can deal with the situation a little better? So grounding reality, fictionalizing the details, right? It's almost like we're manifesting that character that we want to be. So how do we do that? Let's again understand this from the perspective of Lefty. Now, Lefty in general, as a regular day-to-day person, is actually pretty anxious. So that's why we are calling him anxious Lefty right now. Okay. So he's extremely emotional. He looks at this as a weakness also. He knows that his communication is good, but he often whoops up because he feels like he's again caught up in the spotlight effect. He loves to hang out with his friends, but often feels overwhelmed when interactions are prolonged because he is not able to set the right boundaries with his friends. Then, of course, he hates some mundane day-to-day tasks. So we're trying to almost understand a personality by looking at the visual also and looking at these write-ups also. He possesses a chaotic mind, constantly needs to do extreme things, because of which his energy is very, very fluctuating and he's forgetful, like we saw recently, but would get really anxious if you get mad at him for not calling you back, which exactly is what happened, a couple of minutes back. So you see how this anxious character is somewhat taking away so much energy from his day-to-day interactions that he always feels drained. Now, what is the version of this character that he wants to become or can be a better, let's say, person in dealing with the day-to-day scenarios that he's dealing with? So he becomes a very different version of himself. See, I'll flip it. It's fun to look at also. So he becomes like a cool character, like a quirky lefty. Okay. So now he has his comfort with his own. I'm not saying that he is still perfect. The character is still very, very flawed. He's still very emotional. Sometimes look at this as a weakness, but he also knows his way out of his emotional turmoils. Similarly, he knows his communication strengths and has confidence to feel safe even while he's being vulnerable. Okay. He loves to hang out with his friends and is able to enjoy the interactions because he has recently learned the ability to set boundaries. Okay. Then he still hates the mundane tasks, by the way. Has a tough time understanding the concept of time. There's always either too much time or no time at all. And again, he possesses the chaotic mind. So there are still a lot of things which we are not saying are picture perfect. But he is just somehow able to deal with his own personality better because of his awareness about his personality. So I think the key word here is that we need to be a little more aware of our own behavior to be able to do better in the day-to-day life and not end up feeling overwhelmed or tired all the time. So now let's go back to the previous steps. We said we are creating a distance by introducing this character X. Now we know the character X can be this quirky lefty. Maybe the quirky lefty would deal with this situation a little better, right? So what we can do now is replace the quirky lefty with our character X. So see, now the quirky lefty is wondering, okay, how can I, change the game? How can I change the situation here? So he leads up to the situation, and what ends up happening is, yeah, of course, his friend is going to ask, okay, what happened? You never called me back. So he's now imagining, okay, yeah, let me buy some time and I need to come up with something funny to cover up for the call that I never made. So what he does is he ends up uttering like a very bizarre joke. He says, "Wait, oh, the call that didn't happen yet. I must have stepped into the wrong timeline. Hold on, let me catch up with this dimension." So what he ends up saying is that he time traveled and he did make a call to her in some other dimension. But oh, oops, so sorry, I forgot to make the call in this situation, in this particular timeline, in this dimension. So what ends up happening is they start to share a laughter. They have like a good time and see how the situation got diffused. Even though he was at fault, even though yes, he admitted, he's not denying that he made the fault. He's not saying that it was not my fault. But in a with a different creative approach, he just didn't make the situation any worse, and he ended up making it actually fun for both of them. So it's a win-win situation after all. Now, yeah, let's very briefly understand how this actually plays out. What we are trying to do here is we are reclaiming our narrative by shifting our perspective. So anxious lefty was also in a way doing similar things. He was also thinking, overthinking. This person is also thinking, but the perspective is a little different. The approach is a little different. So what this person does is has the confidence to be able to hold the narrative in his own hands because he has understood his own behavior better. He knows how he behaves in a certain situation, and now he can reframe the situation better. So when you use humor and you use reframing, when you do not take yourself too seriously, you can actually convert embarrassing situations into something like a human connection that we saw happen in this situation, right? So why this is very, very important is because, see, there are always going to be certain situations where we would not have a lot of control. But the way we approach the situation can totally be a game changer. If we are coming from a headspace which is very anxious and very stressed out, then we are not going to be able to improvise while the situation is in a way unfolding. You know, you are in a way calling for disaster by being not available. If you're available for the situation, then you might actually end up not being in dire straits or not facing like a very, very bad situation. So right now what we have done is we have understood moments. You can actually think of certain moments where you could have behaved a certain way and you did not. Maybe you tripped on a sidewalk and you felt really embarrassed, you felt really anxious. But now imagine what if you could have said to yourself, oh, maybe I developed like a new dance step. I don't while tripping. Another situation that I can give you is sometimes, we go to some places and we feel like it's time to go say bye bye. And after saying bye bye to everyone after a meeting, and you realize after you leave out of the house, you realize, oh shit, I forgot my bag in the room, or I forgot my bag at the place. So you go back, and one way to look at it, it is you can think that you goofed up. Everyone is going to feel now, okay, oh, he's back. You feel embarrassment. Or the other way is to look at it is that you can just use it as an opportunity for like some added humor. You can say, oh, here's my comeback. How was my comeback story, guys? I think I will do it 3, 4 more times just to make it more obvious that I keep forgetting things. So the whole idea here is that you are again reframing. You're not letting the social situation get to your anxious side, right? So when we deal with moments, it's in a way, let's say we learned even how to deal with moments. What ends up happening is we are in a way caught with instant gratification. Okay, it will give me a sudden rush. Yeah, it will be fun. But life doesn't happen in a reel. Life happens in a long format, right? So it's the same thing as you can check out 10 different reels, but you watch a good movie, it's a very different experience. So you can do 10, let's say, comebacks in 10 different situations. But if your life is still not sorted, it's not going to be fulfilling for you. Those moments are going to be very, very fleeting. They will just go as they came. But if you learn to work with, let's say, the long format, it's going to be a game changer. So what do? We imagine life to be a long comic series. And how do we do that? We first of all learn how to present this information in a fun manner, which is, of course, going to be something like a storyboard journal where we start to put things out, and we in a way very unabashedly, we in a way very very thoughtlessly put things as they are. That's the first step. If we can journal our very raw thoughts, we can revisit them, because what ends up happening is a lot of times the mental chaos is so much that we are never able to look back and really reflect. So how we can reflect is when we have like something as a copy which we can go through. So, see, you don't need to really be very good at sketching to do that. You can be extremely basic with your sketching skills. You can be extremely, what do you call it? I would say basic with your abilities to, because see, we always have words to complement our sketches. You don't always just need to sketch. Wherever you feel like you're not able to express something visually, you can use words to express that. So once you have everything laid out in front of you, like we can see here is, it's not like a particular situation, it's just an example to explain you how this process can work out. So then you start picking out situations or certain insights which could have been dealt with differently. Certain instances, certain situations you can pick where you could have maybe you know done a better job, but we because we have all the data now with us, now we can reflect. Now we have the opportunity to really rewire our way of thinking, or really transform the way we look at ourselves. And the next step would be to introducing that character X. The character X that we talked about previously comes back here. So when we have a long format story, we are going to have various possibilities of introducing a new character in our story, where maybe, let's say, we have none of us have only two versions, right? I am talking about this anxious Lefty and this quirky Lefty as a very reductive kind of a thought. All of us have minimum 5, 7, 10, I don't know how many versions inside of us, and we can keep using the right versions in the right situations if we are mindful enough. I know it's a bit tricky as a thought, because the thought itself can get overwhelming. But when you put your thoughts out, you will start understanding that it's not as complicated as it seems. We can just be a different version in a different situation and deal with the situation much better, right? So I think for this particular presentation, we can sort of, stay at this, try and understand how this story version, this comic version of our lives can be fruitful for us in the long run. And let me give you a very brief, almost like a recap of what we have talked about today. So Spotlight effect we've understood. So first step that you need to recognize is the spotlight effect itself. Once you've detected the spotlight effect that I am facing this, then you need to create certain distance between you and situations where you typically feel that spotlight effect more often. Once you have created that distance, you understand yourself as a character with various versions and see which version fits well in a particular situation. The next step would be to reclaim the narrative by shifting the perspective using humor and reframing. Then, of course, once you have that skill set that you can change your perspective using humor, you can reframe your own thought process, then you can start journaling as storyboards for better insights into your life and your patterns. And when you do that storyboarding process again and again, you will automatically start recognizing your own behavioral patterns and your own situational patterns where you end up somehow, getting a little bit caught up with. So the final step is, of course, to reduce the overwhelm and enjoy your social interactions. So that's, I think, where we can put a comma here. There's no full stop because this is honestly just the beginning of a very interesting process. So what I'd like to say is that remember this, you are the main character of your life, but even the main characters, even the best characters slip on banana peels sometimes, right? So take yourself not very seriously, but still be the main character of your life. Thank you.